Hello students, this is the second video of second phase of the Indian national movement in which we are going to discuss about the objectives and methods of the assertive nationalist. In previous video we have already discussed children the causes which has led to the rise of assertive nationalism, various leaders, what were the reasons, and now today we are going to study about the objectives and the various methods which were adopted by these assertive leaders. So, the objective of the formation of the assertive leaders or assertive nationalists was the immediate attainment of Swaraj. As we know, the early nationalists were only demanding for the self-government under the British rule. But here, due to the various reasons, the upliftment, the origin of the assertive nationalist or the assertive thought was coming up, due to which now the objective was shifted from self-government to the Swaraj. So, Swaraj means complete independence and not just the self government. So, what was self government, children? Self government means a rule which was done by the Indians but under the British crown. But here, by the assertive leaders, we were demanding complete independence or Purna Swaraj. They wanted to intensify the struggle to take it to the common people and to awaken the masses politically to secure the participation in the national movement. So, these were the main objectives of the assertive nationalists or the assertive leaders, what they wanted from the Britishers. And to fulfill these objectives, various methods were adopted by these assertive leaders like Swadeshi, boycott, national education, and passive resistance. So we'll take one by one. Children, Swadeshi and boycott are very important point which are frequently asked in exam, and usually the question is asked related to the various methods which are adopted by the assertive nationalists, or sometimes questions are also asked in the form like state the difference between the methods which were adopted by the early nationalists as well as by the assertive nationalists. So sometimes comparatively you have to study of the methods, and sometimes straight away you can write the methods of either assertive or the early nationalist. So here comes the Swadeshi movement. Swadeshi implies or Swadeshi means production of essential items within one's own country and utilizing them for domestic use without any or minimum reliance or imported material. Swadeshi. Now, if we translate Swadeshi, Swa means own and Deshi means country. So, basically, the things which belong to our own country, we manufacture those things by itself, and for which we don't need any kind of imported material or anything. Everything, whatever is being prepared within the country, has to be prepared by the material which is used in the country or which is produced by our countrymen only, by our people only, right? So, and that was the Swadeshi. Now, the another method which was adopted by the Britishers, by the Indians were, or by the assertive leaders were, boycott. Boycott and Swadeshi actually goes hand in hand. Sometimes we call it as Swadeshi and boycott are the two sides of the same coin. So, in absence of boycott or in absence of Swadeshi, there is no existence of boycott, and in absence of boycott, there is no existence of Swadeshi. So, what was boycott? A boycott is an act of voluntary and intentionally abstinence from using, buying, or dealing with a person, organization, or a country as an expression of protest. So, to show a protest, a person or we can say here the people were protesting against the Britishers, right? So, people were not purchasing the things which were manufactured by the Britishers or whatever they were having, they were setting them on the fire, or kind of a bonfire they were organizing to show as a symbolic their aggression towards to these things whatever was done by the Britishers. So that was the boycott. Economic boycott of goods produced in England and promotion and acceptance of Swadeshi was intended to encourage indigenous industries and generate employment. So, as we know, if we were boycotting the British goods, so definitely we are going to use, in place of those British goods, something was required, and that something or that particular thing was manufactured in our own country as per the Swadeshi method, right? So whatever the Swadeshi materials was being manufactured in our country was utilized in our country, and we were boycotting or we were ignoring the things which were prepared by the Britishers. So it was also conditions towards harming. Now the next point which we'll be studying over here, that is the national education. Assertive nationalists tried to enlist the active participation of students in the national movement. Basically, most of the nationalists or most of the leaders or the followers were coming from the universities which were run by the Britishers. So students were studying in those universities which were run by the Britishers, and as the Indians were participating or the students were participating in the national movement, so Britishers tried to refrain those students from their studies, or tried to put clutches on their behavior or on their studies, so that they may not participate in such revolutionary activities. So therefore this ideology of national education emerged, in which the education which was related to our nation, or by the people of our country and for the people of the country, was evolved. Okay, so when the British government threatened to take disciplinary action against the students over this, assertive nationalists advocated establishment of national universities that were free from government control. As a result, a large number of national schools were established in East Bengal. So many national education were established to let those people study, to let the Indian youngsters study in the universities, those who were debarred or those who were rejected from the universities of the Britishers. Then the universities which were set up, like Bengal National College was formed in Kolkata, Pachiyappam National College was set up in Chennai. In Punjab, the DAV movement spread their message through different schools and colleges. So, through such institution, efforts were made to impart an education with national orientation. Okay, so that was the natural education, and here comes the passive resistance. What is passive resistance? Passive resistance means non-violent opposition to authority, that is especially a refusal to cooperate with legal requirements. So here we were not within the non-violent frame. That means we were opposing the Britishers, but not actually violently, but in a form of non-violent way or in a legal method. So the assertive nationalist leaders advocated non-violent resistance and active political resistance by the masses. In order to claim the rights, they advise Indians to refuse to cooperate with the government and to boycott government services, courts, schools, and colleges. So, here, in spite of showing the violent ways, the assertives were promoting passive resistance, in which they wanted the people to be neutral or not to participate or not to work for the government or just to boycott government services, courts, schools, and colleges. So these were the major methods which were adopted by the assertive leaders. Apart from this, many other methods were also adopted by them. They were like mass involvement, personal sacrifices, and revivalism. So what was mass involvement? That means, as we have seen in early nationalists basically involved the intelligent class or intelligentsia, whereas the assertive nationalists tried to involve the masses. Masses means people from each and every section of the society, whether they are rich, poor, or from the middle class. Then personal sacrifices, they motivated people to come in front and show the patriotism among the people, to upgrade them, to develop the love for the nation, so that the personal sacrifices should come. Like if I am boycotting the government service, or if I am not accepting any job by the Britisher, so what I am doing? I am doing the sacrifice for the country. So such kind of personal sacrifices was asked from the people. Then revivalism. Revivalism means the various festivals were revived. Like Shivaji festival was revived by the assertive leaders. I mean, it was celebrated again by the assertive leaders. Why? To let the people should remember that these national heroes belong to our own country, and this may instill them with the more spirit and more love towards the nation, with more patriotism and all. So such kind of methods were also used by the assertive leaders. Now we are going to study the comparative study, or the comparison between the early nationalists and the assertive nationalists. Children, this is important. This question is also frequently asked in short also, and even in the structured question also. So pay attention and listen it carefully. So the early nationalists wanted to achieve self-government, and they strove for autonomy within the empire and not for absolute independence. So as we have discussed before also in this video, that early nationalists wanted self-government under the British crown, whereas the assertive nationalists wanted complete Swaraj, or the total authority from the Britishers, uh, not only the self-governance. Early nationalists believe in constitutional methods and worked within the framework of the law, whereas assertive nationalists, they disagreed on the constitutional method, and their approach were quite assertive in nature. Early nationalists held good position under the British government because they believed in justice and fair play of the Britishers, whereas the assertive nationalists denounced the British rule and defied it. They did not agree with the Britishers, because assertive nationalists believe that in India, basic poverty is just because of the Britishers. It is the reason behind the poverty and the famine in our country is because of the Britishers. The next, they had faith in the British sense of justice and fair play, and assertives rejected British rule and held it responsible for poverty of the Indian people. Early nationalists received the support from the intelligentsia. Intelligentsia means the people from the middle class, especially lawyers, doctors, teachers. Whereas the assertive nationalists, they drew the support from masses, which I have discussed just now, which masses included people from all the sections of the society: men, women, children, youngsters, rich, poor, middle class people. Everybody participated in assertive way of nationalism. Then early nationalists, they were inspired by the ideas of Western philosophers, that means foreign philosophers, whereas the assertive nationalists drew their inspiration from the India's past. So these were the differences which we have found in early nationalist leaders and assertive nationalist leaders, their thoughts and beliefs. So children, these were the methods and objectives, and in next video we'll be studying about the leaders of the assertive nationalists. Thank you.